Tom, can you hear us? We have Tom on the phone. Tom, are you ready?
I'm ready, man. I hear y'all.
Yeah. Well, first off, we'll get to college football in a second, but let's talk about stuff that really matters. Did humans build the pyramids in Egypt?
I would have to be shown and proven through actual architectural schematics and technology how they possibly could have done it.
Yeah, I don't think we could do it nowadays outside of, Patrick Mahomes.
But at least we would have the we would have the machinery to actually lift the stone, right?
That's true.
Lift the granite, lift the rock. Like, what were they doing? Like, intertwining, like, vines to make rope to lift 10-ton boulders?
Tom, I've watched enough Ancient Aliens to know that they got those stones from, like, hundreds of miles away, okay? They didn't have planes back then. They had Vimanas. You know what? I'm going down. Y'all do not want me to go down this route.
They were really.
I will turn into Giorgio Tsoukalos on here so quick.
Your hair just
my hair will just start getting taller and taller. The answer is aliens. Yeah, that is
perplexing.
Yeah, it's very perplexing. But speaking about aliens, Tom, Auburn doesn't have a lot of them personnel-wise on the team right now. Tank Bigsby's obviously a really good player. Jarquez Hunter, really good player. You got a big game against Penn State. To me, this is almost must-win territory for Brian Harsin. You need something good to happen. You didn't look good against San Jose State. This is a way to kind of get some momentum there for Auburn. When you look at this game, what are your spidey senses telling you on a Thursday before they kick it off at 3 p.m. Central? I believe that's the time on Saturday.
That if Sean Clifford stays healthy, Penn State clearly has the better quarterback advantage. And how can Auburn on offense have Tank Bigsby and have Robbie Ashford be your leading rusher last week? I mean, I look at this game and the home field advantage, the crowd. We've been to an Auburn game. It's electric. I was in Happy Valley last week. That was an unbelievable atmosphere. They're used to that type of atmosphere when it's the friendly confines of being the home team. So how Penn State handles the road environment, which they did a really nice job of at Purdue in week one, may play a bit of the role, but they just got a better football team, man. They got a three-headed monster in the backfield between Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, and Kevon Lee. Sean Clifford, man, he's a good battle-tested player. He just has to stay healthy. If he does, they got a chance to be really good. My one area where I say Auburn could create some havoc is Penn State is not very good in the offensive line right now.
Yes.
They're to some degree, they can be soft, they can be pushed around. Ohio last week brought some stunts and some twists and did some simulated pressures and created some problems in their pass protection. Actually got home versus Sean Clifford multiple times. That would be the one area where if Auburn can get Penn State behind the chains and now get the crowd involved, that is where there might be a bit of an advantage for Auburn. But I'm trying to figure out how Auburn's going to consistently move the football on the ground or through the air, because we kind of know what they are at quarterback, right? Like, how many times do we need to see this? This is what they are.
Yeah. Well, Tom, again, we always talk about the games won and lost up front, but this game, whoever is able to run the ball is going to be able to control the tempo and kind of set the tone. You have two offensive lines that, in my opinion, just from a personnel standpoint, just aren't that great. It's one thing to know your assignment and line up and play your assignment. It's another thing to get there on the block and not be able to be dominant just because of physicality and ability and personnel. It's just the truth. I think if you're Auburn, if you're going to have a solid run game, it's going to have to be on the perimeter. It's going to have to be outside zone. You're going to have to see the jet sweep. Auburn isn't good enough, and I don't think Penn State is good enough to line up and say, you know what, we're going to play big on big. We're going to give you gap scheme. We're going to run power and counter and lead right down your throat because we have the cats up front to do it. I don't think you can do that. I think you got to beat them with outside zone, mid zone, work your inside zone, split zone, which everybody has, the jet sweep. If you're picking the quarterback to play for Auburn this week, I don't know how it's not Robbie Ashford. TJ Finley is a one-trick pony. Now, is Robbie Ashford a great thrower? No, but he is decent enough where that run threat can manipulate a defense enough to get guys open. It can help you in the run game. The RPO's more dangerous. The zone read's more dangerous. I just don't think TJ Finley gives you enough options to be able to, number one, improvise, which you have to be able to do with the quarterback position, extend plays from not only outside the pocket, but within the pocket. He struggles to do that. At some point, do you just get Robbie Ashford out there and just run a little diet wildcat?
You almost have to, because essentially what you're describing with TJ Finley is you're playing 10 on 11.
Yes.
If the defense doesn't have to account for the quarterback's legs, you don't have to account a player for the quarterback. Now, you start running the quarterback, that changes your box number. It changes how much man-to-man defense you want to play. Just go back to 2 Sundays ago and watch Florida State, and they were going to live and die by man coverage. And that's why those runs for Jaden Daniels for LSU happened, because he's working through his progression, and he realized, holy smokes, the front door is open.
Everybody's
There's nobody to
back's
account for me. Yeah. And so I think you almost have to go with the guy that makes you the most dynamic, all right, and forces Penn State to have to account for that, because that was the issue for Purdue in week 1.
Yeah.
Penn State knew exactly what was coming, and they knew exactly where Aiden O'Connell was going to be. So it simplified what they were doing on defense.
Very true.
Tom, I'm so excited for Miami to go on the road to Texas A&M this weekend. Mario Cristobal, we're still trying to figure out what exactly the ceiling could be for Miami. They go in and they're going to play a Texas A&M team who's fighting for their pride here after losing to Appalachian State. A couple questions in one here. Do you think we'll see Max Johnson at quarterback for the Aggies? And if so, will it make a difference for Texas A&M? And on the Miami side, I mean, could this be a coming out party for Tyler Van Dyke with a big road win?
So the answer to the Max Johnson question is I can't see how we wouldn't, right? Yeah. I mean, how do we not see maybe just a spark, something that gives them a chance now that we've gone through 2 weeks of Haynes King? But I think even the bigger question about Texas A&M on offense is, are they ever going to evolve? Are they ever going to become creative? Are they ever going to join maybe the rest of college football and bring some tempo, spread it out? Doesn't mean you can't run the football. Use all of those weapons that they have. I think that's as big of an issue as which quarterback they decide to play. Now, if you haven't seen Tyler Van Dyke yet, he's really talented. I think he's got the potential to develop into a first-round draft choice at some point. But I also think this is like the perfect storm for opportunity for Texas A&M here.
Agreed.
They're like a snake backed into a corner. It's the worst time to be playing. It's like Oklahoma having to go play Nebraska this week.
Yep.
Like it couldn't be a worse scenario. And
nothing to lose.
I think you'll see it. Yeah. No, I mean, it's unbelievable. And so listen, Miami will have superior athletes to what Appalachian State had last week. The question is, can Miami do to Texas A&M what Appalachian State did? Because that wasn't just about beating Texas A&M. It was how they beat Texas A&M. They physically whooped them at the point of attack. How does Texas A&M have 18 rush attempts and App State has 52?
It's wild.
I mean, it's mind-boggling. I mean, it really is. And so I think Miami's going to have to go with the same mindset. They're going to be more prolific in the passing game because they got better skill, but they have to go in with the same mindset that we are going to line up and we're going to smack you in the mouth and we're going to run the ball down your throat. And it looks like Miami's found a bit of a run game. And I think their offensive line has vastly improved over what it's been the last couple of years. But, you know, one last note on this, which I found was interesting, is, you know, we keep hearing about recruiting and we keep hearing about this 2022 recruiting class. And I have said all along, very talented. They're all still freshmen.
Yes.
If you put too many of them on the field at the same time, you may have an issue. Well, lo and behold, I go to the little box score on Sunday morning, and I go to the defensive side of the football for Texas A&M. You have to go down like 15 to 16 players before you see one of those true freshmen on defense log a tackle.
Wow.
They're not playing, right? They're not as involved, and so. You know, that's why I think a lot of people are saying, well, maybe Texas A&M's best opportunities in 2023, 2024. Okay, well, that's fine. That doesn't give you an excuse to lose to App State on week 1. Or week 2.
No, and I've been one of the guys that's big on A&M in 2023, but you got to get the quarterback situation figured out because, again, we all know you get a jump start there, then there is talent there. They have some talent. I do want to make a point on Miami. Some people will say, oh, well, Miami struggled with Southern Miss a little bit early. I'm big on Will Hall and Southern Miss, but let's not pretend like Miami wasn't probably looking ahead to this game and was very vanilla in what they did offensively. If you go back and watch that game.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a great game. And you mentioned Oklahoma, Nebraska. I think we're going to get to that in a minute. But first, I want to get your thoughts. Mississippi State going to Baton Rouge with this LSU team here. I think Brian Kelly tried to make a statement last week with, what, they have 50 points in the first half, something like that. But Mike Leach is putting something special together at Mississippi State. I think Will Rogers is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. How do you see this game playing out here? I mean, can Mississippi State go on the road here and get a nice win?
If LSU decides to play a 3-man front and drop 8 because they know there's zero willingness to run the football on behalf of Mississippi State, and Mike Leach decides to run the football, Mississippi State will win this game. I think they are the better top-to-bottom team. May not have the better top-to-bottom athletes, okay, but they may be the better team right now between Mississippi State and LSU. And I just, for years in the air raid, I think you can get away with throwing it all over the lot, throwing checkdowns, doing all this stuff when people are rushing 3. You got 5 to block 3. They're dropping 8. And if you're not in a line of scrimmage league, which the Pac-12 was not, the Big 12 was not, I think you can get away with that for the most part. If you're an outpost location, if you're quirky, if you're different, you can do some things. You can be competitive. You can win. But when you get into the SEC, at some point or another, if you're expected to beat the big boys, there is no way you're going to be able to do that if you're not willing to run the ball versus a 4 or 5-man box. And I think that's the next evolution, because I have as much respect as anybody for Mike Leach and what he's done in the team that he's put together. But what he's done to a certain point in the SEC will get you to a certain point. But in order to maybe make that leap, take that next step, you're going to have to run the football, in my opinion, to some degree, just to keep defenses honest. Force the defense to add a 5th or a 6th guy into the box. So now, guess what, guys? You get man-to-man defense.
Yep.
And do not play man-to-man defense against the air raid. They will
Here comes
shred
mesh. Here it comes.
Oh my goodness.
Mesh, shallow cross.
Think about it. Do you remember that first game for Mike Leach against LSU?
Hey, Tom, written down on this piece of paper when you were talking about the 4 or 5-man box, I wrote down, don't play just man, because that's exactly what LSU did a couple years ago and got shredded.
Yeah, Mike Leach first game.
Oh, got shredded. Miles Brennan threw for like 300 yards. They got beat by like 21.
I know. Unbelievable.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, Tom, a game a lot of people aren't talking about is Fresno State USC. Fresno State comes in as a 12.5-point dog. What does Fresno State have to do to win this game, and what does USC have to do not to slip up against a good Fresno State team with Jake Haener at quarterback?
If you haven't seen Jake Haener yet, you're missing out. This guy is a flat-out playmaker, all right? And that's all fine and dandy in the passing game. But if you look at SC right now and you look where their strengths are and you look at where their deficiencies are, Fresno State's going to have to come up with a way and commit to running the football, because you're going to have to limit USC's possessions. And they can't turn the ball over. You know, people fail to realize SC's not very good on defense. But they're not. They forced 8 turnovers in 2 weeks against a horrendous team in Rice and a terrible team in Stanford. So they've had so many offensive possessions, so many opportunities, because the defense has been opportunistic. But if you don't turn the ball over and you can run the football against SC, that's how you're in the game in the last 7 minutes of the football game. For all of Jake Haener's gifts at Fresno State, he's going to give them what they need, give them what they want. But it's really, to me, going to be about limiting SC's possessions. And if you don't give them the ball back through costly turnovers and you can effectively run the football, you're going to have an opportunity late in that game if you're Fresno.
With that about you're able to run the ball, you're able to run the clock. Give yourself a chance at the end. I was disappointed Fresno State lost to Oregon State, but Coach Norman there at Oregon State.
Oregon State's pretty good, man.
I watched them. What they did to Boise State, that was no joke. Week 1. Boise State, are they the best team there ever was? No. Did they absolutely blow it for me against UNLV and the spread that I had last week? Yes. But that's a pretty nice win there for Oregon State, going on the road in a pick'em there. Tom, I want to get to the Booster Club here in 1 second, but BYU, Oregon, real quick, your take on that game.
What else do we need to see out of our boy Bo Nix before we just say, this is what he is? This is, I don't care what he did last week. I care what he does against similar or better competition. And we know what the outcome is. We know we've seen the bright spots. I think they've been few and far between. We've seen the streakiness. That's what he is. We've seen the inconsistencies, the inaccuracies, the unwillingness to stay in the pocket, work through progressions, and flush the pocket unnecessarily. That's what Bo Nix is. And I'll tell you one thing. I've had BYU multiple times the last 3 years. You better put your big boy pads on and get a note from your mother if you're going to play them.
That's exactly
because BYU will beat you up. They are physical. They don't beat themselves. Obviously in the kicking game last week, they had some snafus, able to pull it out, but they're a well-coached, tough physical football team that knows exactly who they are. And keep in mind, guys, they're old. Like, they got guys collecting Social Security on that roster.
That's what I'm saying. So, they have fathers that are just, their dads are going to practice after dropping their sons off at practice. I mean, it's like
BYU.
Yeah, they're like Dallas Carter. You're like, these guys have to be 40 years old. Like, there's no way these guys are the right age. I will say, too, one of my rules for if I was ever a head coach for non-conference scheduling, never schedule a team like BYU or a school that's based off religion because, Tom, nobody plays harder for longer than people that are worried about the afterlife. So I would never, ever schedule them. That's just, again, that and the triple option, those two things that I'm not doing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing it. But Blaine, Booster Club, what are they saying?
Yeah, Riot Highs has that question for Tom. He says, what we saw from Texas last weekend against Alabama, will they be the biggest danger for Oklahoma in the Big 12?
No, because the worst thing that could have ever happened to them, ever, was getting ranked. Why did the AP rank them? What is going on? You lost the game.
They're back, Tom. Now, Texas is back, Tom. Get over it.
I saw that, and I literally was like, you got it. And Steve Sarkisian had to be going, oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. And so, listen, could they be? Yes. Do I think they played out of their mind? I do. I thought they played aggressive and tough, and were not scared of Alabama defensively. They came after them. I thought I loved the approach. They say, hey, if we're going to go down, we're going to go down swinging. And then I think it hurt them, not so much that Hudson Card had to play, but that Hudson Card was banged up and didn't have his normal level of athleticism, because that really, I think, hamstrung Steve Sarkisian in terms of some of the things that they wanted to do. At the end of the day, I think I've said this to you before, when you don't have equal talent or you're far off from talent, there's a gap. In order to win the game, the other team needs to help you, right?
Yeah.
Well, Alabama did plenty of that. 15 penalties, couldn't run the football. Your leading receivers, your running back. I mean, there were opportunities there for Texas. The only way you convince me that Texas is the biggest threat to Oklahoma is if Texas shows prior to that game that they can handle the outcome of that game, being ranked off of the outcome of that game, and actually flourish without Quinn Ewers. You ask me that question here in the next couple of weeks, it might be a different answer. And until then, no. I still think Oklahoma State, I think Baylor, even though they lost on the road to BYU, I still think that they're going to be a problem within the conference. So is Texas in the mix? Yes. Are they the favorite? I don't think so.
Well, I tell you what, we can talk about the Big 12. They better make sure they play good against UTSA, because if you don't go out there and play, Frank Harris and them will come and rip all the hope that you had very, very quickly. They've done nothing but play overtime games over there with the Roadrunners.
Yeah.
So you better watch. You talk about, I think it's 11-point spread, something like that. Maybe it's gone up to 12.5. But fellas, it's going to be hard for me not to take UTSA on the alternate line plus 14.5.
Yeah, I don't think
because you don't get healthier after playing Bama.
No. I mean, I don't think that's a bad pick anyways. All right, we got a question from Josh Reagan, #Ask Tom. He wants to know who comes out on top in the ACC and why is it his Wolfpack?
It would be his Wolfpack if Clemson doesn't make a change at quarterback. That's why.
Agreed. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Listen, I think there's a couple of things that make this entire deal scary. Florida State's only going to get better, right? NC State has had a history and a penchant for not living up to expectations when they've had an off season of hype, right? For whatever reason, that's been a difficult hurdle for them to get over. On paper, should they be the favorite to win? Yeah, probably. When they're returning level of experience, quarterback play, they got to shore up things in the kicking game. But I still look at, Wake being a problem for people now that they got Sam Hartman back. North Carolina, you better be ready to score at least 40 to have a chance to beat them, which probably won't be very difficult. And so I just think it's a really crowded. And we didn't even mention the way Syracuse is playing. We didn't mention the way Miami's playing. The Miami game coming out of Texas A&M. Yeah, that's what makes that conference. It's like the East Coast version of the Pac-12. Yeah. Every single week, it's one of the toughest pick'em leagues because the teams are so evenly matched across the board.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. But Tom, what game you calling this weekend?
I got Ole Miss, Transfer U, playing against Georgia Tech, Transfer U. It's the Transfer Bowl 2022.
Nice. Love
it. Down in Atlanta. So I'll be getting done with you guys here and hopping in the car and heading down the road for the second time in 3 weeks.
Definitely, man. I like the over in that game. Georgia Tech's plus 16.5. I know you're calling it, Tom, so I'm not going to ask you to pick on game day. Where they're like, Kirk, is calling the game, so you don't say a word, Kirk, or we'll burn this whole set down. But no, Tom, I appreciate it, my friend. Great stuff. Tom Luginbill. Make sure you check him out. Going to be calling the Ole Miss Georgia Tech game. Really appreciate it, my friend. It seems like you're in Atlanta every week now. You were just there for Clemson the other day.
I know. The beauty of it is when I drive, I get paid mileage. I'm actually making money to make the trip.
Yeah, just take the long way. Don't type it in ways. Just take the long way. You'll make more money. Tom, we appreciate it, my friend.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Hey, everybody. If you like what you're hearing, go ahead and ring that bell. We're excited to be here. It's Crane & Company live 2 to 3 Central daily. Ring that bell. I want to hear it from coast to coast.